Do they have on-off switches, class?
We're going to sing a song or something?
Yeah, you can if you want. Yeah.
I don't think anyone will like that.
Huh? Okay. Are we rolling? We're rolling. Okay. So, Bertrand, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Sam.
It's been a very long time.
Quite some time, yeah.
How
time
long?
goes fast.
5 years?
Almost, yeah.
5 years.
Almost.
I was doing some LinkedIn stalking, and I was looking at your track record, and I was interested to see that you studied product design originally. Is that right?
No, I did 3 degrees. The first one, which is product design. The second one, which was inner architecture.
Okay.
And the third one, car design at the RCA. So I did study all of it. Badly, but all of it.
Did you set out initially like to become a car designer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a kind of typical child. I was 13 in the 80s and I found out the magazine and I was like, wow, I want to do that. And no, actually I wanted before looking at cars and fall in love with cars. And I was a Ferrari fan at the time. My bedroom was all yellow.
Yes.
And I knew the story of Enzo Ferrari and I just thought, well, maybe there's a job there. And I didn't know until I was 13 and found a book in the airport to talk about car design. And I thought, hey, you guys, my parents, this is actually a job. But there are 5 schools in the world. 5 schools, I mean, wow. And there was not many at the time, like you were mentioning before. Today, there's quite some schools. There weren't many. There were about 5. And I say, I want to go. I don't know why. The London one looks cool. Sounds cool. So I ended up, 20 years later to actually do it. Was it 10? No, 10 years later. Oh, actually, sure.
But your undergrad was it in France?
Yeah, my first, because, the RCA is a wholly postgraduate course, so you have to do a first degree before.
Yeah.
So I was looking for, we were actually looking at the art center in Vevey, but that was like super expensive and my parents didn't have this sort of money to put on the table. We said, well, okay, maybe you start some sort of compromise. And they were like the IAD in the south of France school studying product design. And I did that, which actually ended up being an Erasmus exchange in Kent Institute of Art and Design in just next to London, Rochester, Kent. And enter the RCA right after that.
Okay.
So I think it's, but it was also, the target was to be a car designer. But, it was pretty much like a dream. You never know if that really happens or not.
Well, yeah. Did you know how competitive it was before you got in?
I mean, when you're a kid and you see there are 5 schools in the world, one is in Los Angeles, the other one is in London, you have one in Detroit, and, that's like, okay, well, that's going to be tough. But to be honest, for me, like when I got my letter from the RCA, like you've been accepted. I remember the moment. I remember exactly where it was. It was at this family I was living at in Rochester, Kent. Say, well, I am a car designer. Today might be not as much because there's quite tough and there are so many schools around and doing good job. But the time you enter the RCA, you're a car designer. Over. So I thought, yeah, I am. It's okay. 2 years and then I'm gone. I'm gonna work.
Because that was pretty much a guarantee. I mean,
that was 100% guarantee. Yeah, if you manage to enter the RCA, you become a car designer. And it was back. It's almost 30 years ago, I would say.
That's insane.
26 years ago. Yeah.
So you did your undergrad, and then the exchange, the Erasmus exchange in Kent.
Yeah.
Was that a separate thing, or was that part of your
I was
undergrad?
so lucky. It was one of the first one in Europe. The Erasmus was starting.
Okay.
And I could do this second degree, which was not even just an exchange. It was doing the final year of this BA of inner architecture, and I did this exchange. So I had basically gained another degree, international one. That was much easier after to study in the RCA to do my MA, which was... pretty much because if it's a UK versus UK compared to the French degree, it was like, what is it? Undergrad? It's much more easier actually from administrative part.
Yeah. Did either of those, like, I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the school in Nice. Is it Like, is it still quite?
Yes,
a,
it is.
okay.
It's like from the French Chamber of Commerce. So it has quite a good reputation because of its link to the government, to the commerce Chamber of Commerce, and it's still on. Yeah, I think they've been running 30, 40 years. But obviously, they do product design. A lot of guys studying with me, they're actually quite famous video game designers.
Yeah.
A lot of I got like 3 classmates. They actually went to the US and Canada, and they've basically been working on most of famous movies that and video games.
Is that how you? I'm going to skip forward a second, but is that how your business came to fruition? Was it because you had?
No.
Didn't you? Is that the same thing or is that different?
No, which business? My first business that opened?
Yes, the one that's now still currently doing visualization work.
Yeah, well, no. That was a completely different story. I mean, okay, my life is full of very... I'm not a typical car designer. I got different things. But I met a guy who met an investor in Detroit. And he said, well, I've got this small studio doing visualization in Detroit. I'd like to do some... car design as well. What do you guys think? It's like, all right, I'm going to do that. 27 years old, opened my first business. Investor, he was a multi-billionaire from Detroit doing real estate, and he gave us the opportunity to open something in Nice in south of France. So we had this wonderful 320 square meter house with sea view, and opened this business called Digital Image Studios. And the Detroit company sister still exists. So that was another story, but this is completely independent from that.
And that was, you did that for how long? A year? Or?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah.
And then you just decided you wanted to go, because you had already started working as a designer before that.
Yeah.
Right?
I was actually working for, at the time, I can't remember if it was GM Europe or Opel or Vauxhall and Rüsselsheim, but basically I did this job, and it was a bit of a situation where I thought, I needed more. And that opportunity came, and I thought, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When you have an investor paying for you open your own studio in the south of France, it's like you can't refuse. You're 27. Are you going to... I don't know. So I thought, this is the opportunity, and let's do it. Let's try to do something different. Let's learn from it. If you don't do that if you're young, you never do it. Probably that's what I thought at the time. So 27 was the right age to open my own company with 2 other associates, and it was a good story. The why I had decided to leave was actually to help the company. The main investor had some health problem and decided to get away all these investments away from US. So he asked us to pay back all the investments. And it was like quite a big investment. And I thought, my God, I don't feel like I can go to the bank, ask this amount of money with my age and say this is going to be viable. Because I thought at the time, well, this company basically is a few computers. It's a building, but the building it's not a real asset. And it's like me and the guys. I say, okay, let's better close it down or not do it and do it myself alone. So that's what happened. So I decided not to pursue the company because or you think the investment is worth it, but part of this investment was actually paying my salary as well. So it's like you pay back your salary. It doesn't make sense. So I think I decided. The company continued for another year.
With your friends as well? Or?
My associate, exactly, Audrey. He kept doing, and then he went to work for Toyota, which was one of our customers. Okay.
So if you, with regards to that lesson that you took from that, did you go in with the mindset of like, as you said, I'm 27, opportunities like this only come around once in a lifetime, and I can always go back to automotive? I know you were technically doing automotive, but were you fairly confident that you would get back into an OEM after?
No, it's just I think in my case it was pretty much like things happen, and what happened after is that. After I decided to leave the company, I sent an email to all my contacts. And 2 days after, there's a Honda in Offenbach who sent me a mail, hey, do you want to do a project for us? And I started being an independent, but not because I choose for it, because the opportunity came just really rather quickly after 2 days. Say, oh, okay, I'm going to do this project. And then went on to the other one, to Mitsubishi, then I went to Japan, then I went to work for Nissan UK, and then to Milan, to Bonetto. So I just, but it was just like, I would say it was not planned. It was just planned that, you know what, I think in life you have to learn, and you have to learn through many different ways. I think I always had this sort of attitude that it cannot be just normal car design. I think at some point will become very obsolete. You had to think a little bit outside the box and just saying, oh, I'm going to do another clay model and another clay model and another one and another one. And eventually you have another one. But look at this body side. It's so different. It's very new, never done before. And then, the next one is very new, never done before. It's one way to see it. But for some reason, I believe, must be something deeper than that.
Do you think that's your product, like, because you spent a bit of time doing product design?
I think it's
at least at university. I mean, how much of that influenced your outlook?
Well, because anyway, I studied like from product design to car design and architecture. So I guess I had let's say, different ways. No, I think it's just my character. I think you grow with it, with thinking like, I tell you what I think. I think I have a pretty bad memory. So I'm not interested in the past.
Memory, yeah.
The past doesn't do me anything, I just want to make the future a better place. I don't care about if 10 years ago I did that and it worked well, so I have to do it again. So for me, it's more about going further. It's like, okay, what can I learn next? Do I want to die already, or do I want to be like a person that is going to be like just an old guy that people look at him and say, oh my God, this guy is just old and he's boring and repeating the same thing for the next 20 years?
Right.
Or do I want to be a leader, even for myself or just my kids, that is better than nothing, to say, well, you got to embrace the future and love it and not look backwards. So I'm like, for me, it's more about this than just what I studied before. Now, obviously, whatever you do in life brings you further, but to me, it's just a character, I guess.
Going back to your first job out of university, I think it was Opel. If your LinkedIn is legit, it said there that you did both exterior and interior. That I didn't realize this, but I've come to realize that I speak under correction because this is what I've been told. But at Ferrari, for example, that's a totally normal thing. I was under the impression for a long time that exterior designers will only do exteriors and interior designers only do interiors. There are conflicting arguments for both. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's quite very simple. I think it's not about car design, it's about universal human behaviors. And if you look at what's happening today, we're coming from last century about specialization. Like in an extreme way, our ancestors and parents, they were doing one job in one place with one family, with one house. This time is quite long ago, right? I mean, you don't do that really anymore. Now, I'm not saying that people have to move every 6 months, but definitely you get like something. The world goes so fast that if you stay 10 years in the same environment, you might just, like fade out. You have to go fast if you want to be fast. I mean, I'm not talking about even the social medias that we were talking before. That goes incredibly fast, but you have to find a pace in order not to be lost. Even if you have a small shop, if you don't go online or you don't try to go online, the chances that you go out of business are actually quite big, even in a small town. So for me, I think. What was the question again?
No, the question was specializing in exterior versus interior.
So I think we're coming from this world to now. You have to be not multitasking, but you have to have a different vision. To be highly specialized, work up to a certain point, but you definitely have to understand. I think today things are much deeper. Like we're coming from a world of 100 years of design development that is looking purely and merely on the object, how to improve the technicality of this object versus we're going to the user, looking at what human beings need in order to be better and to use it. So when you talk about this old UX phase, everybody talks about it. It's actually nothing really big or new. In most cases, you will argue that it's like a graphic designer that is much better paid. But the real depth of user experience is the foundation of what makes a product viable. And you say the product, it might be any kind of product. It can be just a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to be a vehicle with 4 wheels. So from designer standpoint, if you do only exterior, it'd be quite difficult to actually find the pace, to not think only, oh, this body side can be round, square, flatter, belt line, higher, lower, undercut, less undercut, fuller, central, flat, new, whatever. Oh, we make a grill, no grill, because that's the future, it's electric. So we got no grill, we're going to be the future. Well, that's just looking at the product and to make a difference. But if it has no meaning for human beings, then it doesn't bring anything. It's going to be just a new product that you're going to sell. Well, you got a guarantee on that one. Tried to kill me, that one.
Oh, fuck. Nothing like that to break the ice, eh?
It's never happened before.
Well,
there's a first time for everything.
You see, let's just think about the product, not the user. So he's going to not thinking like that's just an old-fashioned designer.
Is that, do you need a clamp, class? Huh? Do you want some more tape? There's tape on the side there. Disaster artist.
I think it's because it's black. It's not the future. The
No.
future is bright.
The future is
It's not
bright,
dark.
yes. Yeah, but the thing is, the background is black so that the subject can shine. So
blue and black.
you are bright, Bertrand.
All right, yeah.
But that's a very holistic and like insightful notion, what you've just talked about, with regards to not getting sucked into details. You talking about like having reverse engineering the taking the user and thinking about what they need and then working backwards rather than creating a product and then finding a user for it. What the question is that interiors are interiors are, you could say, a lot more function driven than exteriors. What do you constitute have being innovative in exteriors?
I'm not quite sure. The question is about innovation versus functionality, but that's the tricky part, obviously, because I think when you talk about car design, exteriors seem to be the symbol of what a car designer is. If you say you're a car designer, hardly people will think, oh, you're doing a steering wheel. People will not. The interior designer, many people will not even know there are people designing interiors of cars. But the reality, innovation. It can be in different ways.
Okay.
It can be true innovation, and true innovation brings innovation. That means it brings something not just different, not just something new, but something that makes more sense. Versus we're making a product that people look at it. Well, it's very new. Does it make sense? Is there a value to it? You can argue there are many examples around. Maybe one of the most provocative one was the Cybertruck from Tesla, as an example. It's not its styling that it's innovative or provocating. It would have been just my kids could have sketched it, or you can argue it's a car from the 70s where the Italian were doing side view, front view, top view, rear view. But you can argue that because it makes the product lighter and stronger and cheaper, that's the real value. So the value is not the aesthetic of it. I mean, I got friends work and they say 6 months of clay. Like, what? 6 months of clay for that? What do you use clay for? But, whatever. But I think if you look at the product, I mean, you will argue about the visual appearance, but if they make it for $40,000 and it's like super strong, and it's super cheap because you have no banding of sheet metal, then that's a value. So that's innovation. So it's not like you will have done the car in the same traditional 3, 4, 5, 6-way stamping with a new undercut. There will be no value. It's just a different visual. So you make it, oh wow, that's cool, but cool doesn't say anything. There's a typical word that you use, cool, that doesn't have any value. It's cool. It's hype. It's great. I love whatever. But the value is within its construction and what it brings to the customer to pay cheaper, to keep it longer, and that brings a new aesthetic. So that's innovation. So in exterior car design, to find innovation, real innovation, without having technical newness, it's obviously, I don't say it's tricky, but you will do it probably in details. Like, for example, all the technical part, headlamps or whatever. I mean, a door handle, electronic one. What will be, for example, the value of this for the customers? Just that it looks cool? Well, if it brings you in a sense of you're happier because it's new and you can show to your neighbor, well, okay, it's a new experience. Oh, look at my door handles, they pop out electronically. What if it saves your money because it's more aerodynamic? Well, okay, that makes sense. It's a real value for what it is. So it depends how you put value in exterior design, and most of it is definitely more in the emotional sense. You touch the heart of the people, and obviously basic stuff like aerodynamic ingress, like makes the product a better one, a more innovative one. What we're entering now is a world of something different, because like with autonomous drive, then you will have, let's say, unplugging. You're gonna need a new way to interact with your car. I drive a EV, and I can tell you this cable, and you put it, and it just is dirty on the floor in your house. I mean, there's something that's gonna happen until there's real innovation happening there, because it looks cool in EV, but you plug it in and like, okay, the cable is dirty. So you probably want to have renovation. Now on interior, obviously, it's like a mass of innovation there, because you have anything from a house, hi-fi, stereo, a kitchen in most cases, when you have your cup holder become cold and warm, and you got like a furniture design, you have all ergonomic, you have a touch, smell, all the materials. So obviously it's much closer to a real innovation around a human being. But that's basically because it is around the human being. So the exterior is around its environment. So it's got more value probably from the other people looking at the product, or you when you use it outside. That means opening the hood, opening the door, or opening the technicality. Like Audi A2 had like this small cap in the front in order to get just the oil change or something like that. So you can definitely see some part of innovation. But if it's true innovation, you can look at it's more difficult. As long as you have a 4.5 to 5 meter by 160 2 meter wide car with 4 wheels, then you can have this box a bit more inside. But what connectivity might bring is a new approach to style the object from the outside perspective that will be more connected to the rest.
Do you think that exterior design in general is going to become more obsolete because of that? That you just basically, like, where you could argue that there's a couple of things at play. Number one, that car ownership is going to be decreasing, and number two, that the experience will very much be about the interior environment.
Well, okay. Let's go back to your first phrase about the ownership will be decreasing.
Okay.
I will argue in what does ownership means, and I will go back to a current situation, not go back to the future. Most people say, in the future there will be only 3 cars and pods because nobody wants to own a car. All right, fair comment. The real question is, what is ownership? Well, today in most of part of the world, let's take even Europe or Germany. You have, for example, brands, I can tell you even Korean brands, that 100% of the car is company car. Can you imagine? No ownership at all. So what is ownership? Does it belong to the bank? You have a credit. Does it belong to a rental car company? Does it belong to Uber or whoever? It always belongs to someone. So when we talk about no ownership, I think it's a complete irrelevant question, because in the end, it's like the question is that do we want to move our body physically to one location to another, and probably in more private environment than being in a bigger vehicle with more people? Unfortunately, the COVID-19 situation made something very drastically different. More people, we are having our sales exploding right now because people want to have a private vehicle rather than to be in public. Obviously, it's a very unexpected situation and a very unfortunate situation. So we never know what can happen. But ownership in this case might even just explode again. So, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is like, even today, you go to a dealership, how many people pay the car cash? So technically, or you do a leasing, it doesn't belong to you. So ownership is only in your mind. It's like, is it mine? But no, it's like buying a house. It's almost never used.
So the emotive desire will still be there, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yes,
Even
okay,
if you design for Uber, when I remember when I worked on the Insignia, one of the key thing was because we were also presenting to this major leasing company, and a company ordering let's say 10,000 cars is important, and they come and we actually do clinics to these people and they actually tell you what it is. An insurance company, I remember the first soft nose hood, the cutline hood, was made to reach a 5-star rating because for the insurance company it was very important to. So who is the owner? Was it the person, or this design has been designed in order to reduce the insurance cost? So it's also like the insurance. Can you say it's actually the main customer telling you how to design a car? And I think it's very basic stuff. I don't think it will change anything with Uber. Now, if we believe the world will be in just you're going to have one pod for transportation and we will not care at all about personal transportation, that means styling of making a new box, that will be working only if a company managed to erase completely all competition. If this company is called a government, Uber, GM, or Toyota, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a company, and company is just here to make money in business. So, if human being will want to have the exact same pod and just to maybe transport, well, let's look back to bus, train, all the other plane transportation. And you can argue that maybe plane are the one where only interiors got some differences, but they also do if you go from one company or one airline to another, even the interior, they have to make it very different. If people want to have only one, well, there'll be always someone who wants to show you they can do better. There'll be always an entrepreneur that will come, and if you're, let's say, Tesla get 99.9% of the world share. I mean, we know that's probably isn't going to happen, but imagine that's the big catastrophe of no ownership. So there's going to be like no ownership and just Teslas everywhere. But you're always going to have a new Elon Musk. Elon Musk, this guy 10, 15 years ago, we didn't talk about him. Now we talk like if he did everything. There'll be another one next. It's the normal attitude. You're going to have people that want to fight, they want to show better, they need to get a better user experience, a better product, a new system, and that's going to continue. So I don't think there will be an answer, no ownership. There will be always some sort of space for design. If you look at the work of exterior designer, if exterior designer will not have a job anymore because one sketch 80 or 100 million cars of the same one a year, that's probably misunderstanding the human brain. The human brain never works that way, never. To have only one thing. That's why every city is different, every food is different, every culture is different, every language is different. Now, of course, we're merging slowly, but if we talk about the sort of unique pod, I doubt this is going to work. So work for designer, there will be always, because there's going to be always someone who wants something different.
The role of the designers clearly got a lot more complex. What would you advise somebody either at university or finishing university? What sort of things would you recommend them focus on now in this current market based on all the things that you've just said?
Well, the first thing is I think schools, they don't necessarily do it well. They all change their name to mobility, whatever school. Like, come on, if Ford does it for sort of a PR reason and to say, well, we're not a car company, we're a mobility company. Okay, it's just vehicle company, transport company, moving your body company, whatever. I don't build boxes with 4 wheels company, whatever. But you're still doing the same. You have a factory. That is, and you have a one factory, or let's say a system around the factory with suppliers. You're producing an object that eventually a customer will buy, and a customer doesn't mean a person of 80 kilos, with a credit. It might be even like a large company. They will buy it to use it in a certain way. That hasn't changed. It's not because you put internet on it. It's not because the car drives alone. That doesn't change anything of the business. It's just some PR activity to make it. So schools, they make themselves like mobility company. So good. Okay, sounds good, but it's that you're going to change later to no ownership company school, whatever. It doesn't matter. In the end, your job is to touch emotion. So, at the moment we're looking for people, and we have I have a lot of portfolios and people and great ones, but a lot of people tend to make too much talk about blah 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 concept, and that's a typical school way. And unfortunately, what they don't trigger, and what you should learn from all the social media, is the single impact that does tack in your head.
The
it goes like yeah. So that means I'm not gonna read hundreds of portfolio a day and they're saying like, all right, you know what? In the future, people gonna be mobility is gonna be sustainable. It's gonna be artificial intelligence. We're gonna share it. Like blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, we understand that. How do you touch my heart? What does the product look? Because in the end, designers is about touching your heart from a visual thing. Okay, you can argue it's visual and touching, for touching, but they say the first impact is your eyes. That's exactly what everybody does on an object like this. You look at something. It's all flat in there. Huh? You got videos, you got whatever, but you might get stuck into something that you look like, into something flat. So it's all visual. And music, of course, sound, but sounds is part of it. So it's going to be exactly the same, exterior designer. So school, a portfolio, let's say, is a good one, is the one that has a visual impact, not a storytelling, because storytelling is something that goes into branding, it goes into time, into understanding that Apple wanted to go into the best user experience you can get, But the first impact, like simplicity, and you get one touch, okay, this is it. But you don't have to explain. Like best presentation are the one that's just like 3 keywords. You understand? The message is clear. Not about, if you have to explain your product like 10 hours, then, especially with the speed of today, social media, there's something that if you click every day, we're used to do click, no, yes, I love click, double click, like, well, like, not like. We have even older generations like me, we do the same. Instagram, you don't like. LinkedIn, I'm not interested. Oh, that's an interesting article. We do the same in a millisecond. So you cannot have time for talking too much. So cars, let's say schools or all the designers, they should do exactly the same. A single impact that is so, I want to interest you. And we come back to what we were talking in the kitchen before. It's like, in the end, the job has been always the same. It's just the speed that is different. And the speed today is so fast that you can't take time for people to say, well, if really you give me the chance after 2 years, you'll be happy with me. Like, what? In a world that goes so fast, you got to be kidding. It's instantly. So we're used to this instant. So I would suggest like exterior car design will always be the same. But the answer is like you look at a car on the street and oh, wow, what is this? Same. And it doesn't even take you a second to realize that you fell in love. You look,
So what you're talking about is really mastering the craft of knowing how to put a car together, basically.
No, because to know how to touch people's heart. Because, like, for example, where, in the 80s, I designed a car and, it was perfect. Look at its proportion, looks like the front overhang, the wheelbase, the height, the belt line, everything's perfect, surfacing, great. Yeah, okay, and what does it bring to the newer generation? Like, okay, this guy is 25 and he's used to TikTok or Instagram or whatever the whole time. Do you think he cares about the perfect proportion of it? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. If you don't understand what human beings want, how they react to things, like for example, I might be completely crazy by looking at an old Ferrari V8 and a younger 20-year-old guy might not even look at it or look at it like, this is pretty noisy and smelly and I don't like the small windows and the red anyway, it's old-fashioned. I don't know. But, if you don't understand the people, what they really want or how they feel, then you're just going to make another product. Say, well, in the 80s or 90s, I designed this car and it was actually really cool. And it's like, I'm going to do the same. It's going to work, but make it even more different. That's not going to work. People were different. People are growing. So I'm saying you have to look carefully at the customer experience.
Sure, but you also need to be able to speak the language of design, i.e., you've got to be able to communicate those ideas. I'm not saying that you just sit in the room and learn how to draw a coupe. What I'm saying is that you need to. It's an amalgamation of those two things, isn't it? About understanding the user, knowing what they want, but also mastering your craft and bringing those things together to create something
Yeah,
Emotive is. Would you agree with that, or?
Yes. I mean, through the learning, but unfortunately, time, or let's say getting old, doesn't make you necessarily learn. For example, someone traveling around the world, you have two types of people. You have the one that travel around the world with a camera and say, anyway, they're like this and this like that, and it smells like this, I don't like it. Or I like it or I don't like it. So it's a judgment base, but you don't move. And you get the people that integrate, travel and integrate, and they're like, oh, I've learned myself. So it doesn't mean because you do something, you travel, that you necessarily open your mind. It's the same for experience. Experience in life. It's not because you've been working 20 years that you know more, that you open, So for example, knowing, you work for the same company 20 years, right? How do you actually know that there's a person that can believe something is truly different? When I moved from GM Europe to Volkswagen, it was so radically different, the way to do things. It was all about perceived quality, and there are things in one company we'll do to the other completely different. But what I've learned is that, everyone has its own way. And it's okay. I think you want everyone to feel different, to be different, but you do it in a very different way. So learning by doing, maybe, but maybe not, because sometimes if you don't take examples for your own learning experience and you take it, that's the truth, then you're not learning. You're just telling this. You take it for granted. So, for example, if proportion, I mean, you got a lot of people coming with this perfect proportion or whatever. You like 3.5 wheels and 2 wheels on the top, and it's gonna have a short front overhang and a long dash to axle proportion. Sorry, but yeah, okay, it's one way. Is it traditional? What about a Lucid coming with an MPV type luxury or different type? Is it go against premiumness? It goes from the basic rules, but is it better or not? Well, it is probably better if you take the actual experience. Let's say, take a BMW, which was probably a master of this premium proportion of a short front overhang, front rear mounted engine behind the axle, the long dash to axle, cab four rewards, a rear-wheel drive powertrain thing, a perfect architecture. But the experience was based on driving dynamics. It's based on you get the little kick at the back of the wheel in order to make it very dynamic. It's one way of doing premiumness. But what about space inside? What about sleeping inside? What about listening to great music inside? It's another way. So if you take, for example, great proportion. I've learned that. I was at BMW, I was at Mercedes, I was at Porsche. You're going to have to have a long hood. And then you go to a startup company and say, we need to think about the user, and tell it, don't worry, we're going to do it premium. We're going to do like a long dash to axle proportion, and say, why? Well, because that's the premium proportion. But does it bring anything for the customer? Yeah, it looks good. But I mean, we want his holistic experience inside the product to be amazing. So why will you actually do that? It's shorten the whole space inside. Oh, yeah, but I've learned that for 20 years. This is an example. But knowing that this exists is a plus. But believing that is the truth forever, then you're wrong. And then you will, So in my experience, it's like all about all these learning experiences. You take it, to know that if the customer, if your target customer or the new target you're reaching, they really feel they want to have a certain classical premiumness out of the exterior proportion to show their neighbor that they're succeeding in life, then you learning working for a premium company will help you, right? But if the customer is this 22-year-old young guy from Shanghai that is on TikTok every day and he's a startup guy kind of idea, you might go with your premium proportion completely wrong. So it all depends. So the learning by time, it just depends. But you should never underestimate that the past might not be the future. It might help.
For sure. And that's fascinating. But that's still quite an abstract concept for a student, for example, to grasp. There's a lot of things there at play. Like we're talking about storytelling. We're talking about holistic design, as in like from the interior experience to what it looks like outside, the fact that tastes are changing, and there's so many different things that we are talking about now, and I agree with everything. I just am interested to know, like, what is there any tangible advice that you would, like, if you were going to say focus on 3 things to some kid at university, what would those 3 things be?
Very simple. You go backwards to what is the target, or who is the target? I mean, who might not be a physical human being, it can be even a company, but who is the target? Make it very simple to say, wow, this is a car from DHL, for example, Uber. Let's say Uber. Yeah, that's my target, to do a car for Uber. Make it very simple. Don't make like 5 pages out of, I've been researching the psychology of Uber and their business markets like this. Nobody will read it. Only your teacher, maybe. But that on your portfolio, get rid of it. Make an impact. Say, car for DHL 2025. Over. And then show what is the product. Let us dream, make an impact, make it quick, make it fast. We're not in a world like, if you're looking at what's happening in Asia, it goes so fast, you have no time for making things like that. So whatever your degree ask for at school, and we have this teacher, and the teacher will tell you, you're going to have to make sure that this is intelligent and interesting, and they take 2 or 3 hours to listen to you, fine. But that's got nothing to do with the real world. That has to do with the degree and with training you training your brain to develop a concept. Fine. But looking for a job is a different story. Get rid of all this crap. Just go into the essential. The essential is that you got a person in an office, if you're lucky that he goes into the office, that's going to have a pile of things like that, or on a computer. And you're going to have like, this one, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's going to be as simple as that. So nobody's going to have time to read all that. So just make sure that that's my target, that's my product. If you want to know more, invite me. I'm coming and explain to you. All right? So their impact, that's the guy. Look at how amazing the product is. And you're going to have to associate the two in your brain. Say, that's cool for you, Uber. That's the car. Oh, it looks cool. Yeah, I believe it's kind of for a sharing company or the future. I mean, that makes sense. I think as simple as possible.
Do you think that there's what you're talking about now is quite conceptual? Do you there's also a certain
it's simplicity. It's about simplifying.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. What I want to go to the exact opposite to conceptual, to go to simplify. In a world where you have billions and billions of possible connection of people, whatever, you click, you can spend the whole day, the whole night in clicking on one link that goes to another. There's nothing more important than simplifying the message. If you go wrong, you lose people. So designers or students for design, they have to simplify their message as much as possible to catch the attention. And it's not about like making 5 different sort of perspective of the product and you look at it or something like this plus a big, just make it simple. So it's not conceptual. It can be just one car in the end. You can design a nice Porsche. That's not the question. And you're gonna say this car is for the 40-year-old, let's say, guy in Taiwan that has this new business, whatever. Short. That's my Porsche for him. It's not conceptual. It's about simplifying.
Very good. I wanted to ask you, off the subject of students, more about your personal journey in terms of where you've ended up or where you currently are at the moment. You've there's a lot of designers can spend a long period in a company and by default get promoted to senior designer and then management, and quite often they hit a glass ceiling because they, for whatever reason, but probably because they're not actively planning their career out. How much planning did you do?
Well, not much. If you look at my path, is obviously quite a different one, a special one, because I never really cared about. It's not I really cared, but definitely my target was to be. I don't say happy in life, but definitely compromise in life was always my target. I needed excitement. Like I am one of the key person. I say I have to wake up in the morning with a smile. You have to get there, like wake up. Yeah, I'm gonna be. There are not many moments in my career where I didn't have that feeling. Like in almost every company. Talking about career is a very difficult thing for two reasons. I mean, if you talk about glass ceiling, this is a very different story because the glass ceiling is you are the problem of your career. You can't actually move up because of that. The career path is very different, but it's actually quite simple. Let's say, imagine you're a design studio with 300 people and there's only one head. Do you think 299 people will actually become that? Of course not. And of course, you create a pyramid, which is part of social environment more than any truth. You can have like 290 designers and one head. You can do that. But the career path to move up the ladder there, let's say mathematically, is almost impossible. So what you can do is actually create opportunities around. And unfortunately, like moving away from a company is the best way to move up the ladder. So it's unfortunate, but companies are not designed for everyone to become a leader and to go to the top of it, to the summit. And the real question is that most of companies are not really good to know what to do with people with extremely amazing experience. And what do they do once they reach 45, 50, 60, like we're not good at it. There are some companies, like they make them experts, they have sort of a title where they still can be financially, have a big improvement without having leadership skills, or let's say skills or responsibilities. But, you have to understand one thing. Leading people, or let's say, it's not for everyone what should be. It's a different job. I mean, being a super artistic designer versus leading a team or leading a vision for a company, they're completely different jobs. You don't have to be the great designer to lead a team, and you don't have to be a super good team leader in order to be a good designer. So if your career, it depends what the path is, but it's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. I know that a lot of people, they just reach a certain age and say, oh, what am I going to do? And it's very difficult. In my teams, I have a lot of seniors I have also a lot of amazing designers, ex-Bertrand, like people that really created some of the famous products. And at some point, it's still tricky to what to do with these people that actually, they're not exactly always good in communicating. They're not exactly good at refreshing themselves, but they have an amazing experience. So it's a tricky one. And I guess the companies are not exactly based on that. And you want to keep them because they're the heart and the soul of your company. So you want to make sure these people grow. So what you do most of the time is you make them sort of mentoring younger people. But at the same time, it's also quite difficult because you mentor people that are back in their mind in the 90s and they still think like in the 90s are the same, then you might not help younger people. So you can help maybe teach them in a different way what they've never seen before. But like, of course you can ask someone can you teach the young designer that never seen that before, one-to-one tape drawing, for example? You can do that. You might bring something out of that and you're going to have, wow, this is cool. And I've never seen that before. Oh, I can do reflection with the layers and shadow. And oh, that's interesting. But they will look at you, but why don't I do it in Photoshop? It takes 10 times less time. So you can obviously create a synergy of learning different methods. They might not be quicker, but they might develop a sensitivity that the younger designer might never had before. Or clay modeling is a perfect example.
Communication is obviously a huge part of what you do.
What everybody knows.
Yes, but as you said, like some people are better at it than others. And you might have this amazing designer that is able to do these beautiful proportions on command, but they don't necessarily articulate themselves that well. And as a result, that might hinder their development. And you are obviously really good at communicating. is that something that you feel is it just comes naturally to you, or have you are there any like books that you've read that have inspired you to be a better communicator, or has it just naturally evolved to the point that you're at now?
Well, okay, for me it's a bit of everything. Yeah, I like that. You know, I've always liked communicating. I'm a pretty open-minded person. I like to talk to people. I like to learn languages. I'm pretty much like this. So, of course, I read books as well, and of course, I'm always like many people trying to evolve and grow up and learn always. And there's always something to learn in life. That will be very sad not to have that, right? But I guess I do personally have, I'm a lucky person. You know, I'm the kind of person, if the top management ask me, sit down here, answer the questions and I will do it with no learning actually, I'm actually better if I don't learn, because I'm really not good at learning. If I have to learn something by heart and I have to repeat, I won't be good in that, you know, because it doesn't feel natural. So I have this natural feel. For someone who doesn't have that, it's a tricky one. It's no doubt a tricky one. Introverted people, you know, versus extroverted. Obviously, this is a basic of human beings, and that's not easy. And you're gonna have to work a lot more in order to reach your communication. Now, could you go back a little bit to the beginning? Communication, like you can communicate through different ways. Sketching, you know, for example, as a leader, you don't have to make a speech in front of 200 people all the time to communicate. You can make one sketch and say, guys, can you do that, please? It's the same. You can. That's why when we say communication, there are many different ways.
Sure, but I mean, what you've just talked about now is true with regards to like, can you guys just do this? Because you know he's communicated through a sketch, for example, which is true. The point is that in order to get to the level that you're at, it's not a case of like, you know, your one manager saying like, I think Bertrand's done his time now and I think it's time for him to rise to the top. You basically need to have near enough a committee of people saying like, we all buy into what he's about. And that comes from being able to articulate yourself clearly and assertively and effectively.
If you don't want to have a mess in a company, then you have to have a clear vision. That's for sure. How you transform it, I mean, I think it's different. Communication by speaking is one way, but again, there are different ways. But if you're messy in your head, then everyone will be messy. People will not go to, if you're like, all right, hey guys, today we're going to do like hypersonic something, or, let's go organic. Or maybe we go, let's say geometric, or maybe we go there. Hey, no, I don't like cars. Yeah, red is good. You know, like, nobody will know how to follow you. So, but that has nothing to do with communication. That has to do with clear vision and simplicity of it. And I go back to the portfolio. Simplicity, clear message. That's what we're going to do. Guys, let's go into this direction. So, but it's not everything. You know, when you have some companies decided to provoke some very, I would say conservative companies, but famous company decided to get a 34, 35-year young new design director, a bit crazy, and everybody's like, what is that? Man, there's a new guy coming. Oh my God, he's young. How did he do? He did nothing. It is an ugly car, by the way. There's a choice from the company to decide that we're going to change everything in the company. It's so it doesn't have to have everyone to agree. Sometimes companies decide to make a big wave into the system and say, well, okay, we're going to change everything. I'm so fed up of having the same cars for the last 10 years. It's another way. But you have to have someone that have really good communication skills at the back in order to be able eventually quickly enough, because you still have to produce in the end, that they will say, okay, I'm going to have to follow this direction. Or, you know, in me working a lot for China, for a market in China, there's a very interesting culture difference there. There's a say, I can't remember exactly the translation because of China. It's like, but in a muddy lake, you see better the future. So there's a sense that in a mess, then you have more opportunity for creativity somehow. You can argue that it's, let's say, out of your comfort zone happen miracle. There's different ways that don't completely disagree with the fact that in a mess situation, you might reach something very unexpected. So I don't think there's one way, but if you want people to follow your dream, then you better have it clear and have it understandable for everyone to know it. But doesn't mean that you can be messy and people will eventually end up with something. It can be possible. But for people that are not good at that, it will be tricky, no doubt. And I hope one day companies will actually explore a little bit some ways to what to do with senior people that doesn't have necessarily the wish or the skills to become whatever you call a leader or a manager. And there's a lot out there, especially in design. You have so many amazing talents that they get stuck eventually because they're not quite fulfilling the HR requirement that were, if you want to be a manager, you have to have this, and this on the point. But your communication skills aren't good, so we cannot. So you're going to stay just a designer for the rest of your life. Well, maybe I want to learn something different. I got to say, the Chinese are really good at that, at making people move to different position, to different, we're a bit, in Western, we're a bit like, like you say, I'm an exterior designer, I will be exterior designer for the rest of my life. I have a lot of friends and colleagues in Chongqing. They actually go to sales and they learn something completely different and marketing of brand, and they come back eventually. So you open your mind in a different way. So that ends up that quite messy sometimes. You have people that are leading something they've never done before. But in an overall picture, it's actually quite interesting to see, well, you're a human being, you have capabilities, let's try something different.
That's a very interesting notion, and it would be a refreshing thing to see in Western companies. Bertrand, the last thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned earlier on about happiness and waking up every day and being stoked to go to work. Are you still of that, or do you still feel like that with all the responsibility that you have?
Sure, more than ever.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you not get weighed down by all the moving parts? That do you not get? But
that's where the energy comes. It's so crazy. My life, it's quite crazy right now. It's a bit more quiet now because I don't fly. I haven't been in China since January. So which changes that. Before that, it was every 2-3 weeks. So you got a rhythm, like your body. It's like being a professional athlete.
Fighter.
You get athlete depends what kind of sport, but you move forward. You do at the beginning you do some gym or sport activity. You're tired. The more you get into it, the more you're faster. So it's the same. So the energy comes with a rhythm as well, and by the motivation. I can't in my role, I can't really sleep. I have a lot of things happening there that just, even if I want to sleep, I cannot. There always someone calling me, always something happening, always a new emergency, a new project coming, a new whatever. But that's about motivation. Happiness is something different. In my personal case, I love that. I'm very bad in coping with boredom. I don't like boring, if I have to do like the same thing after years and the same thing and the same I don't know, mood, like you say, all right, that's going to be the, I was so happy when Herbert Dietz came to Volkswagen and said, guys, you don't have any EVs? And we were talking for years about the undercuts. Guys, does it bring anything undercuts? You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah.
Is that you have to find something that people feel always excited in the morning, something surprising. It's like a Christmas. You cannot, the Christmas, if you get every Christmas the same present, it'll be boring, right? You need to have a new something all the time. So working for me for a Chinese OEM, there's no lack of surprise. It's definitely my type of, there's always something exciting, some energy, some changes, something you didn't expect. And so it's not easy for everyone because obviously some people like to have it a little bit. So finding the right balance between comfort and out of the comfort zone in order to keep motivation and happiness and amazed is the tricky part. And I think they're probably not the perfect company that does it well, but that's what I'm trying to do. Try to get this enough amount of feel safe, feel comfortable, but uncomfortable. just get a little bit in something that people say, okay, tomorrow there's going to be something new. All right, let's do it. But that's what motivates most of people. If nobody motivates to go there, okay, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to do a sketch on Photoshop on the side view. And maybe if I'm lucky, by the end of the day, I will be a 3/4 front view. It goes to a certain point, but you definitely have to trigger creativity in, all right, something different. So this motivation, it's something, I think it's also not quite the same as happiness. I think it's something different, but you probably can join them together at a certain point. If you're motivated, that means you feel excited. You actually, your body develops like chemical reaction that brings happiness. Everything that is a bit more down, more boring, have a tendency to be more depressing. So you need to go a little bit into the excitement. So it goes a little bit together, even they're slightly different.
Okay. Bertrand, I think on that note, we'll call it a day. That was absolutely awesome, dude. And 100 miles an hour, I kept quiet the whole time, and that was great. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for meeting you. It's nice. It's nice to be here, and I wish you all the best anyway.
Cool.
Take care. I hope people could follow what I was saying. But
yes, no, I think they will.
You'll make a good cut in the end.
Cool. Awesome. So
thanks, Sam.
That was fucking great.